Maria wiped down the last table at Café Lagasso, her shift finally ending. The small restaurant in Naples had become her second home since arriving from Nigeria 2 years ago. Tonight was special. The owner was hosting a celebration, and Maria had agreed to perform a traditional dance she'd learned from her grandmother. As the music started, Maria lost herself in the rhythm, her movements telling stories of her homeland, of harvest celebrations, of community, of joy. The cafe erupted in applause when she finished, but one man's gaze stood out. Don Francesco Morty sat in the corner booth, his weathered face breaking into an unexpected smile. "Bellissima," he called out, gesturing for her to approach. The cafe fell silent. Everyone knew who he was, the respected patriarch of one of Naples' oldest families, a man who commanded respect and some whispered fear. Maria approached cautiously. "I haven't seen such passion in years," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "I have a proposition for you." Maria's heart raced as he continued. "I will fit all my resources into your venture. My connections, my support. I've been looking to invest in young entrepreneurs, and I want to help you open your own restaurant." He explained that his late wife had been a dancer too, and seeing Maria perform had reminded him of dreams deferred. He wanted to mentor someone with her determination and talent. Over the following months, Don Morty proved true to his word. He introduced Maria to suppliers, helped her navigate business permits, and became an unlikely friend. Her restaurant, Savannah Nights, became a bridge between cultures, serving both Nigerian and Italian cuisine, hosting performances that celebrated both heritages. The Mafia Don, in his twilight years, had found redemption in supporting new beginnings rather than controlling endings. 3 months after Savannah Nights opened, Don Morty arrived at the restaurant with troubling news. He found Maria in the kitchen, perfecting her jollof rice recipe. "We have a problem," he said quietly. "The Russo family is expanding their territory. They've been pressuring small businesses for protection money." Maria's hands stilled over the pot. She'd heard whispers about the Russos, younger, more aggressive than the old guard families. "They came to you?" she asked. "Not yet, but they will." Don Morty's expression was grave. "I want to prepare you. You have 3 choices: pay them, close the restaurant, or let me handle it." Maria set down her spoon and faced him directly. "There's a 4th option. I handle it myself." The Don raised an eyebrow. "And how would you do that?" "The same way I've handled everything else in my life, with dignity and smart choices." She gestured around the bustling kitchen. "This restaurant has become neutral ground. Politicians eat here, business owners, even police commissioners. I've built something that matters to this community." When Marco Russo and his men entered Savannah Nights the following week, they found the restaurant packed with a diverse crowd. Maria had strategically invited every influential person she'd met through Don Morty's connections. Marco approached the bar where Maria stood waiting. "Nice place. Would be a shame if something happened to it." Maria smiled calmly. "Mr. Russo, I've prepared a special table for you and your associates. Please be my guest this evening." Surprised by her composure, Marco found himself seated at the best table, served an extraordinary meal that blended Italian and Nigerian flavors. As he ate, he noticed the city councilman at one table, a prominent journalist at another, even a judge enjoying dessert in the corner. Maria approached as his meal ended. "Mr. Russo, I understand you're a businessman. So am I. This restaurant represents something new in Naples, a place where everyone is welcome, where old grudges are left at the door. Harming it would harm the whole neighborhood's reputation." She leaned in slightly. "Don Morty taught me that real power isn't about fear. It's about creating something people don't want to lose. Attack me, and you attack everyone's favorite gathering place. Protect me, and you gain respect from the very people you're trying to impress." Marco sat back, reassessing the young woman before him. She'd outmaneuvered him without raising her voice or making threats. She'd turned her vulnerability into strength by making herself valuable to too many people. "You've got nerve," he finally said. "I respect that." Don Morty, watching from across the room, allowed himself a small smile. Maria had learned well, but she'd also brought her own wisdom to the table, lessons from navigating a foreign country as an immigrant, from building trust across cultural divides. "There's room for new ways in this old city," Marco continued. "Maybe you're right. Maybe protection doesn't always mean what we thought it meant." As Marco and his men left, leaving generous payment for their meal, Maria exhaled deeply. She'd gambled everything on the idea that community bonds could be stronger than intimidation. Don Morty joined her at the bar. "Your grandmother taught you well. That dance I saw wasn't just steps, it was strategy. You know how to read a room, how to move people." "She taught me that power comes in many forms," Maria replied. "And that sometimes the strongest position is the one that brings people together rather than tears them apart." The restaurant continued to thrive, becoming a symbol of how Naples was changing, honoring its past while embracing new voices and new possibilities. 6 months into Savannah Night's success, a new establishment opened 3 blocks away, Palazzo Nero, a lavish restaurant backed by foreign investors. Its owner, Dmitry Volkov, made no secret of his ambitions to dominate Naples' dining scene. Maria first encountered him at the market, where she bought her ingredients. He stood examining produce with a critical eye, his tailored suit out of place among the morning shoppers. "You must be Maria," he said in accented Italian. "I've heard much about your little place. Quaint, charming, very modest." Maria continued selecting her vegetables. "And you must be Mr. Volkov. Welcome to Naples. I hope you'll find the community welcoming." "Community?" he laughed. "I'm not here to join a community. I'm here to set a new standard. Your fusion experiment has been cute, but now it's time for real sophistication." Don Morty warned her that evening. "Volkov isn't like the Russos. He plays a different game, one of sabotage and manipulation. He's already spreading rumors that your ingredients aren't fresh, that your kitchen isn't clean." 2 weeks later, a health inspector arrived unannounced during the dinner rush. Maria welcomed him professionally, but her staff exchanged worried glances. These surprise inspections were rarely random. The inspector scrutinized every corner, his clipboard filling with notes. Maria followed calmly, answering questions, providing documentation. Her kitchen was immaculate. She'd learned long ago that excellence was her best defense. "Everything appears to be in order," the inspector finally admitted, sounding almost disappointed. "You'll receive your report within a week." As he left, Maria noticed a black sedan parked across the street, Volkov's car. The message was clear. He had connections, and he would use them. That night, Maria called an emergency meeting with her core staff. Her sous chef, Paolo, her manager, Chiara, and surprisingly, young Tony Russo, Marco's nephew who'd started working part-time at the restaurant. "We can't fight him the way he fights," Maria said, "but we can outwork him. We can be so good, so essential to this neighborhood, that his tricks won't matter." Maria proposed organizing a neighborhood food festival, a celebration of Naples' diversity. Every restaurant would participate, including Palazzo Nero. It would showcase unity rather than competition. Volkov initially refused, but public pressure changed his mind. The community had embraced Maria's vision, and boycotting the festival would make him look petty. The festival day arrived with perfect weather. Thousands filled the streets, sampling dishes from a dozen establishments. Savannah Night's booth featured a collaboration dish Maria had created with Paolo, a pasta dish incorporating Nigerian spices and traditional Italian techniques, representing the fusion of cultures that made Naples vibrant. At Palazzo Nero's booth, Volkov served expensive caviar and champagne, but the crowds were thin. His food was excellent but cold, impersonal. Maria's booth had lines stretching around the block. Midway through the festival, a small girl tugged on Volkov's sleeve. "Mister, why don't you smile? Food is supposed to make people happy." The simple question struck something in him. He watched Maria across the plaza, laughing with customers, teaching children about Nigerian spices, embracing elderly neighbors. She'd built something he never could, genuine connection. As the festival ended, Volkov approached Maria's booth. His usual arrogance had softened. "You've made your point," he said quietly. "I came here thinking success was about domination, but you've shown me it's about something else." Maria wiped her hands on her apron. "There's room for both our restaurants, Mr. Volkov. Naples is big enough. The question is whether you want to be part of what makes this city special or remain an outsider looking in." "I notice you didn't sabotage me back," he observed. You have the connections now." "That's not who I am," Maria replied. "My grandmother taught me that you defeat darkness with light, not more darkness. You defeat isolation with community." Don Morty, watching from a nearby café, turned to Marco Russo beside him. "She's changing this city without violence, without intimidation, just with vision and persistence." Marco nodded. "My nephew Tony talks about her constantly. Says working at her restaurant taught him more about respect than anything I ever said. She's showing us there's another way." Over the following weeks, Volkov's approach changed. He began participating in neighborhood events, stopped the underhanded tactics, even collaborated with Maria on a charity dinner. Palazzo Nero remained high-end and exclusive, but it no longer tried to destroy competitors. Maria stood on her restaurant's terrace one evening, looking out over the neighborhood. 2 years ago, she'd been a refugee trying to survive. Now she was helping reshape the culture of an entire district. Don Morty joined her, 2 espressos in hand. "You've done more than build a restaurant," he said. "You've built a model for how old Naples and new Naples can coexist. That's rare. That's valuable." "I just did what felt right," Maria replied. That's exactly why it worked. Don Morty's health began declining as winter approached. At 78, the years of stress and old battles were catching up to him. He spent more time at Savannah nights, often sitting in his corner booth, watching Maria work her magic with customers. One evening, he called Maria to sit with him. "I need to tell you something," he said, his voice weaker than usual. "I've rewritten my will. A significant portion of my estate will go to funding culinary scholarships for immigrants, for young people who need a chance like you did." Maria's eyes widened. "Don Morty, I never expected." "I know you didn't. That's why I'm doing it." He placed a weathered hand over hers. "But there's something else. My nephew, Luca, has returned from Milano. He's not happy about my decisions." Luca Morty arrived at Savannah Nights 3 days later with an entourage. Younger than his uncle, but with none of his wisdom, Luca had built a reputation in Milan for ruthless business practices. "So you're the African girl who's bewitched my uncle," he said, his tone dripping with contempt. Maria stood her ground. "I'm Maria, and your uncle has been a mentor and friend, nothing more." "A mentor who's giving away family money to strangers." Luca circled the dining room like a predator. "Do you know what our family sacrificed to build that wealth? And now it goes to, what? Cooking classes for refugees." Paolo stepped forward from the kitchen, but Maria raised her hand, stopping him. "Your uncle is giving people opportunities," Maria said calmly. "The same opportunities that built your family's success generations ago. Or have you forgotten that your great-grandfather was also an immigrant once?" Luca's face reddened. "Don't lecture me about my family history. You've been here 2 years. We've been here for generations." The next week brought catastrophe. Several customers fell ill after dining at Savannah Nights, not seriously, but enough to trigger another health inspection and media attention. The headlines were devastating. "Popular restaurant under investigation for food poisoning." Maria knew immediately this was sabotage. Her kitchen protocols were rigorous, her ingredients fresh, but proving it was another matter. Tony Russo came to her privately. "I heard my cousin Luca talking to some guys. He paid someone to contaminate your oil delivery. I can't prove it, but I know what I heard." Maria felt her world crumbling. Everything she'd built was at risk. The health department had temporarily closed her restaurant pending investigation. Don Morty, hearing the news from his hospital bed where he was being treated for heart complications, was furious. "Luca has gone too far. I'll cut him off completely." But Maria visited him that evening with a different perspective. "Don't destroy your family over me. There's another way." Maria called in a favor from someone unexpected, Dmitry Volkov. His connections in the supply chain helped trace the contaminated oil back to its source. Security footage from the delivery company showed an unknown man switching out Maria's order. But Maria went further. She hired a private investigator, paying from her own savings, who discovered Luca had a pattern. He'd sabotaged competitors in Milan using similar methods. There were victims willing to testify, waiting for someone brave enough to stand up to the Morty name. Marco Russo brought this information to a family meeting, not just the Mortys, but all the old families who'd been watching Maria's success with interest. "Luca's actions bring shame on all of us," Marco stated. "We've been trying to show Naples we can evolve, that we can support new businesses instead of extorting them. And here's one of our own, using the old, dirty methods against someone under Don Morty's protection." The elderly Don Salvator, head of another prominent family, spoke up. "The girl has shown more honor than your nephew, Francesco. She's had chances to destroy competitors and chose community instead. What does that say about our own blood when outsiders show more integrity?" Luca was summoned to a meeting at an old social club where the families traditionally met. He arrived cocky, expecting to manipulate his way out of trouble. Instead, he found a united front. Don Morty, against doctor's orders, sat at the head of the table. Maria stood beside him, along with Marco Russo, Dmitry Volkov, and representatives from a dozen businesses Luca had targeted over the years. "You tried to destroy an innocent woman's livelihood out of greed," Don Morty said, his voice weak but firm. "You've embarrassed our family name and violated the code we live by." "Code?" Luca laughed bitterly. "What code? You built your fortune through violence and intimidation, uncle. Don't pretend." "I did," Don Morty interrupted. "And I've spent the last 15 years trying to atone for it, trying to show there's a better way. Maria has proven that way works. You've proven you learned nothing from our family's mistakes." Maria stepped forward. "I'm not pressing charges, Luca. Not because you deserve mercy, but because I won't let you turn me into someone driven by revenge. However, you will make restitution to me, to the businesses in Milan, to everyone you've harmed. And you'll do it publicly." The evidence was overwhelming. Luca could face criminal charges, or he could accept the terms. Over the next month, Luca made amends. He paid damages, issued public apologies, and quietly left Naples. The last Maria heard, he was working at a legitimate business in Rome, finally learning honest work. Savannah Nights reopened to a line around the block. The community rallied, sending flowers, offering support, proving that the bonds Maria had built were stronger than one man's malice. Don Morty recovered enough to attend the reopening celebration. He sat in his usual booth, watching with satisfaction as his protégé thrived. "You know," he told Maria quietly, "I put all my resources into your dream, but you put something more valuable into this neighborhood, hope. You showed us that success doesn't require cruelty, that strength can be gentle, that power can uplift instead of oppress." Maria smiled, tears in her eyes. "You gave me a chance when no one else would. That's everything." "No, child. You earned everything that came after. I just opened a door. You built a cathedral." The old man's words hung in the air as laughter and music filled the restaurant. Proof that sometimes the most powerful force in the world isn't intimidation or wealth, but the simple courage to build something beautiful and the wisdom to share it with others.